All right, good evening, everyone. We're about to get started. I would like to thank everyone for coming. I see a few new faces, Chaplain James, we see Holly Bennett, see Miss Patricia Massey. How are y'all doing? Uh, I would say long time no see, but I just saw you guys yesterday. All right, Sister Nadia, you got Sister Yusma. As always, we begin, always praise God every time we start. So I'm going to say some things in Arabic and then I'll translate so you know what we're saying. Okay? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد. We always start when we praise the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. All praise is due to Allah. We praise Him. We seek His assistance. We ask His forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah from the evil of ourselves and the evil of our bad deeds. Whomever Allah guides, none can lead him astray. Whomever Allah allows to go astray, no one can guide. I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except the Almighty Allah, without any partners, and I bear witness that Muhammad is His last messenger. All right. So our topic for today, we're going to be talking about the teens today, which is good. We're about teens, and we're talking about anxiety and addiction. All right. So first off, we're going to start out. Sister Naziat, are you ready? Assalamu alaikum, sister. How are you?
Sorry about the background noise.
Oh, there you go. I can hear you now.
Okay, can you hear the background noise? I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, we have it. Not really. Yeah, just hear a little.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It's so good to be here again this week. We're going to be talking about teen depression and anxiety. So I wanted to start off with some statistics, inshallah, because there are numerous statistics that show how prevalent depression and anxiety is, especially amongst the youth, especially amongst the teen and adolescents. Adolescence, as we talked about last time, is a very delicate age. It's a very vulnerable age where individuals are coming to terms with their lives. They're not children anymore and they're not adults yet. So they're trying to navigate through life. They're trying to figure out through life. So inshallah, I'll start off with a few statistics. According to the National Survey for Children's Health, 3.2 million teenagers from the age of 12 to 17 years experienced one major depressive episode. And this is from 2017. According to the 2021 Mental Health America report, severe major depression has increased in youth to 9.7%, which is an increase from 9.2% in 2020. Depression rates are higher in females than in males. According to the Journal of American Medical Association, by age 15, females are twice as likely to experience suicide depression than males are. Teens who have one or more racial ethnic identities report the highest rates of depression, according to the National Institute of Health. So that was depression and how depression affects teens. Now I'm going to be talking about anxiety a little bit. According to the National Institute of Health, 1 in 3 adolescents between the ages of 3 to 18 experience an anxiety disorder. These numbers have also been increasing steadily. Between 2007 and 2012, anxiety disorders in children went up by 20%. Now, what is the cause of all of this, right? Why are the numbers why are the numbers so high? Why are we seeing all of this? And the reason is because there's no one single factor. The reason why teens experience anxiety and depression is because they stem from childhood trauma, genetics, and also major life crisis, high expectations and pressure to succeed, the news, lockdowns, drills, and most importantly, social media. I would say the biggest factor in teen depression and anxiety is social media, because teens and youth are constantly on their phones, their laptops, their tablets, constantly scrolling through Facebook, Instagram. There's a lot of information available. People are seeking attention. So social media leads you to compare themselves to others, which in turn leads to anxiety. So what are the signs of depression and anxiety in teens, right? So low lack of sleep, avoidance of parents, lack of concentration, low appetite, low mood, irritability, dropping grades or school avoidance, chronic physical complaints, substance abuse. So it's important for parents to talk about stressors, be mindful of high expectations, talk to your kids about social media, monitor their social media. Providers like doctors and nurses and school nurses, they can do screenings such as the pediatric symptom checklist, PHQ-9, general anxiety disorder 7, and understand and normalize that depression and anxiety are treatable. These are treatable conditions with oftentimes therapy such as CBT and sometimes medication. But medication is something that can be discussed with the providers, because I understand that sometimes medication is not something that parents will always want for their child. So it's important that they discuss this with their providers and their doctors and whatnot. So have these conversations with your children, understand what their stressors are, right? Because right now, compared to the past, now, especially teens are under a lot of pressure when it comes to succeeding in school, with these standardized tests, admissions into colleges, getting a job right after college. All of these stressors really impact how our teens and youth view the world. So inshallah, I hope that information was helpful, and may Allah guide us to help our teens. And
Ameen. Thank you so much. That was definitely helpful. A lot of information. And we'll get into it, because there are a lot of questions that we have pertaining to all of those different things that you spoke about. So we're definitely going to get into that. All right, let's lead into our sister, Yusma. Inshallah, go right ahead whenever you're ready.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I hope that this gathering has found you well, has found you healthy. You and your families too, of course. So, we talk a lot about anxiety, about depression. Sister Naziat brought up like really, really good points. Because these two things can look different in everyone. We sort of see depression as a little bit, I guess, more severe than anxiety in sort of the way that we view how depression sometimes presents. And we don't always necessarily associate it with adolescence, even though there's a whole category of symptoms and ways to treat depression and even anxiety in younger children, adolescents, in anywhere from a very young age, from 5 years old to 12 years old to 18 years old. So there's different treatments, there's different approaches to all of these different ages and the cycles that they go through. And again, as Sister Naziat brought up, we're a very connected society now. We are always in touch with each other. The internet has allowed us to connect with each other like we're doing right now. We can look at each other, we can talk to each other, we can relay ideas. And these are actually some of the newer ways that they're trying to integrate some kind of, outreach and treatment, especially for younger people with regards to anxiety, kind of raising awareness about what that looks like. And I know it's a buzzword. I know, especially due to social media, the term anxiety has kind of become a buzzword, and it's kind of turned into a catch-all phrase for a lot of things. And, a lot of ways that we can start the conversation with younger people is, if their first response is, I feel anxious, whether it's the first day of school or, maybe they're going to a brand new school, they're moving up a grade. Their response, because I hear this a lot from younger people nowadays, is I'm anxious. We can always look for other language around that, because language is very important. So we can also say, well, what exactly is it are you feeling? Or can you be more specific with how you're feeling? And they might say maybe they have sweaty palms, which, that's progress, of course, that's a good thing. They might tell you they have sweaty palms. They might say that their heart is racing, or, they might tell you they're scared or nervous. These are all alternative good words to use when we're finding that younger people are kind of automatically going to using the words I'm anxious or I feel anxious, which is not bad. We don't want to negate or invalidate how they're feeling either, but we also want to expand their vocabulary, expand how they view internal feelings, and and also show them that these internal feelings can also be physical. Maybe they have an upset stomach, maybe they have a headache. It could be a lot of these things, but we want them to be able to express all of this in alternative terms as well, beyond just I'm feeling anxious or I feel anxious. And a few things just in addition, again, to what Sister Nazi had said, what does that look like? Again, besides helping young people expand their vocabulary, we can ask them about their mood. We can ask them about their mood. What's their mood been like? How are they feeling besides anxious? And that can help them, again, explore other vocabulary, other options besides that. They might even tell you things like maybe they haven't slept recently, and that can open up a new conversation as well. Maybe they're having night terrors or waking up in the middle of the night, which again, all of these things open up new avenues to explore how that young person is feeling. And even for those young people at home that are watching, and maybe they kind of relate to that a little bit. Maybe they're like, yeah, I haven't really been sleeping that well. Maybe they feel like I haven't really been eating that well, or maybe I feel like I've been overeating or eating more than usual. These are all things that are related to, again, maybe feeling anxious or feeling nervous. Maybe there's things going on at home, parents going through separation, or a lot of different activities at home. Maybe you have a young child who's a little bit anxious or nervous or scared or upset because there's a new baby in the house and they don't really know how to handle that situation. So all of these are very different new scenarios, and asking young people to help expand their vocabulary leads to newer conversations with them. Changes in mood and sleep, these are all really good ways to help identify that. There's certain aspects of depression, of course, that are very distinct from anxiety. If you're finding that maybe these changes, maybe a young person is expressing these changes, or you're just visibly seeing these changes for a very long period of time, you might want to ask some more questions. Are they still interested in the same sorts of things that they were interested? Maybe they don't talk about their friends as much as they may have talked about before. Maybe they might bring home a test or a report card, and maybe the grade isn't what it has been the last year or so, and you're noticing these changes. Again, we want the caregivers, we want the parents to be involved. We want them asking questions. When we talked about substance use in a previous session, we talked about the surroundings and the environment, people being interested in that young person and asking those questions, just maybe not even asking, but just showing that interest. Who are you spending time with? Where are you going? Noticing, making sure that they're having simple things like they're eating breakfast every morning, or that they're able to have fruits and vegetables, which again, we understand that food insecurity and food deserts are a real thing. So we understand that that may not be accessible for every single family, for every single caregiver. So we want to make sure that if that's the case, even being involved with people at school, that's another step that we can take as caregivers, as parents, and just as people who are interested in the well-being of that young person. We also want to look at, again, these are realities. We know that young people in our lives can go through a lot of different types of changes. Hormonal changes are very real. They can bring about all different types of emotions. With the anxiety, with potentially depression, they can bring up a lot of different feelings. And so, again, when you're noticing these changes, it's good to be interested and ask questions. we have your usual depression, subgroups. You have seasonal depression. You can have prenatal, postnatal depression as well. These are maybe not as talked about, but they do occur. Again, it could be due to hormonal changes. It could be due to changes just in the environment. Some people might be afraid of what the future looks like with a new baby, whether they have support or not. And so that questioning that sort of future and that reality can sometimes lead to different thoughts. It could lead to potentially depression, especially with those hormonal changes. So we want to look at young people around us that might be going through that as well. And of course, very severe, more acute forms of depression, depression that can be accompanied by hallucinations. They might be hearing things, they might be seeing things that may not necessarily be there. They might be feeling things on their skin, those tactile hallucinations. And so these are more severe, but again, they do occur in adolescence, and that can happen. And sometimes persistent beliefs that may not necessarily be valid. They may feel like they're being followed or someone is out to get them, and they may express these to you. And again, it's very important. We don't want to invalidate, but we do want to explore, what this might mean and where this might be coming from. So again, very important. Again, some of the biggest things we talk about is people in the young person's surroundings and environment being very involved and being very aware of, what that young person is going through, how they're doing in school. And of course, be involved in their social relationships, know their friends. It's always healthy to invite a young person's friends over, whether it be for dinner or, a play date, something like that. Inviting their parents, their friends' parents or caregivers over as well. It's really important to know who the friends are, who they're spending time with. When they say, oh, I played with so-and-so today, you want to know names. You don't want to just be like, oh, okay, that's nice. Again, we want to know what's going on. And, time and time again, it's shown that when caregivers and parents are involved in these interactions, in the social relationships and the circles around adolescence, that the outcomes are so much better, that they are so much more improved. They're emotionally healthy. They're healthy in terms of their grades in school. They may be involved in sports or extracurricular activities. Again, we understand it may not always be possible in households where caregivers or parents are very busy and they work, but initially, especially during those early growth years, it is very important. Sister Nazia touched a little bit on medication. One thing I did want to also add to that is medication, of course, is totally valid for young children and for adolescents. But we've also seen through the research and through all different types of evidence that medication doesn't work nearly as well when there is no, again, family and caregiver involvement, when there is no sort of therapeutic or behavioral changes that are implemented with the child. So, that involves schedules and making sure they're getting up on time, along with, again, helping those social relationships, expanding their vocabulary, and just being able to pay attention to them. Last thing I just want to touch on, the spiritual aspect. We revolve all of this around spirituality. For us, our spirituality, our religion, our beliefs, our morals, they help guide us, and they tell us how important it is that A, we be involved with our child's life, and B, of course, we pray, we make dua. There's a lot of duas. I'm going to leave a link in the chat, very beneficial site. It has actually duas specifically in categories that you can click, and it says, I am feeling, and it says, I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling worried. And there are duas with hadiths and with their revelation on what we can do spiritually to help ourselves, to help our loved ones, to help those around us. And, again, be involved in the local community, being involved in the local masjid. And if your local masjid doesn't necessarily have that mental health and hygiene awareness, maybe you can take those first few steps to help make them aware, or to just bring it to their attention that, maybe the children need a more holistic program. Let's talk about food. Let's talk about keeping them busy after school if they're not already. So these are just some of the ways that we can, identify and hopefully start to move towards addressing that.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, Sister Yusma. I'm having a little bit of connection issues, so if you see or hear, can y'all tell? Good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just want to say, and just to reiterate and back up what the sisters were saying, all of those things are important, but most of us want to know, what do we do when these teens are actually having these symptoms and what and showing these different things and behaviors? What do we do? First off, as parents, we have to check our own behavior. That's one. Us as peer supporters, especially some of us who are here that are peer supporters and peers in general, we know that we are supposed to model behavior. And that's the biggest part, because a lot of us, like we talked about in different episodes, is that our parents are do as we say, do as we say, not as we do people. A lot of us are into that. And if we're not into that, or if our parents are not into that, the society around it is not projecting the same sorts of images and things that we're doing in our own homes. So we're combating that. We're combating some of the stuff that we're doing. But when it comes to our children, we have to model the best behavior first. We have to be the first models for our children. And that really, and alhamdulillah, it starts with the mother and then also with the father, but it falls a lot, especially as young kids, falls a lot on the mother, but it, like we always say, it takes a village to raise people, for sure. So if we're all trying to model that behavior when we come outside, we have a function in a very good society, if we can all do that. But when it comes to especially addiction, and that's really the place where I'm at, because you spoke a lot on anxiety and depression and things of that nature. When it comes to addiction, these things are serious. And I see you, Sister Patricia, I got you. Just give me a second. When it comes to those sorts of things, we have to realize that it's usually like the sister was saying, it's some type of trauma that happened, and when that happens, we have to be open and be honest with our children. And we have to not be afraid to be the bad guy in some of these situations. Because a lot of times we're too busy trying to be the friend, trying to be, I don't want to overstep. And, we have all these different terminologies and all these nice things, and people fit in a box. We have anxiety when we got these and some of these kids, they use it. I work in a substance abuse place. I know some of these people, they abuse these situations where they say, oh, I'm feeling like this today. And now these are trigger words for us who know better. We're like, oh, let me back off. No, it doesn't work in all situations like that. You have to be mindful and know your children. Know what your children are like. Know what your grandchildren are like. But you have to be honest and open with them. Leave the door open. Like, listen, I'm here to kick it with you, but you have to keep it real with me. And that's really what it is. Be honest with me. If you're addicted to something or there's something going on with you, be honest and we can work it out. And we can't make it punitive. And that's a lot of what we do when we come in, like, I better not catch you. If you ever doing this, I'm doing this, I'm kicking you out of my house. If you're doing this, you're going to make the person very afraid to come open up to you and say what they need to say. And sometimes if you're not that person to talk to about that, then you might need to go find somebody else to have that conversation. Because I know me 10, 15 years ago, I wasn't the person to come tell that stuff to. I would need an intervention, whatever the case, is someone else to come in and step in, because I know how I am. I'm like, what you mean? Because I'm not, you're expecting your children to be or model certain behavior, and you're expecting your children and your grandchildren, all these things, to be these types of people. And the first thing we say to them, like my mother said to me, I didn't raise you to do that. You know you know what I'm saying? But some of these behaviors that we actually have raised people to do certain things. Like I remember all the time picking up just something simple. I used to pick up the phone for my mother when the bill collectors would call, or the phone, but she like, tell them I'm not here. You know what I mean? Or a friend she wanted to talk to, tell them not here. And then to turn around and say to you, like, don't ever lie to me. Like you just made me lie to some people on the phone. Like, how, this is a simple example, but these are things that we don't realize what we're doing, that we're setting our children up for certain things and we don't realize it. All right. So I'm gonna let Sister Patricia talk. Go ahead, sis.
Well, first off, thank you for providing this platform tonight. It's very nice. It's a very serious topic. I wish others would have come on board, and maybe you could do this again. It's very well needed. I used to be a Girl Scout leader and a Cub Master. The story I wanted to tell tonight, I often don't get a chance to say. There was a little girl that was in my troop. I was 20 years old when I was a Girl Scout leader. So I am 65 now. So this was 45 years ago. There was a little girl in my troop. Her name was Jennifer, and she was about 8, 9, 10, maybe 9 or 10. And she was always the odd girl out in the troop. And some of the girls used to make fun of her, and I called the girls aside and I told them to knock it off. She was a little on the heavy side, and she just became a target. And it was very unfortunate to see. Fast forward, I want to say 35 years ago, this little girl, Jennifer, is now a mom. And she sees me at church. And she comes over to me and she wanted to introduce her daughter to me. And she introduced me as her Girl Scout leader, which I thought was so sweet. And she asked for my phone number. So every now and again, I would get a little text from her, hello, and that was it. She wouldn't go further. Fast forward, and then when I see her, this is important to say, she was very funkily dressed. Funkily, I don't even know if that's a word. It's a word now. So she had tattoos and her hair was all different colors and very expressive and artistic in her demeanor. And here she was in the church, and she told her mom also. Very sad to say, this girl OD'd. And it's pretty sad. It's really sad, because if you'd have to do a look back to say, gee, there was something amiss back then, and what did everybody miss along the way? What maybe could have been caught? What could we have said? What could we have done? Maybe she was reaching out and she didn't. Maybe people weren't hearing the way she was saying it. And I just felt very devastated to hear this story about the girl, but I did a look back, and, like, you wonder what could have made it different. I mean, you never really know, of course, you never really know, but when you're talking about kids and, you're talking about kids saying, I feel sad, or some kids don't even know how to articulate it. You have to give them the Department of Motor Vehicle sign with the faces on it, and they have to point to how they feel. Grown adults don't even know how they feel. I can't articulate what the feeling is. They have feel anxious. That may be a sign to them they need to go use. We don't know. Everybody's, wired a little different. But just getting back to that little girl really touched my heart. And, what could have been caught along the way? This is, she was in school, right? She was in school, she was going home, and then years later, her parents had gotten divorced. What was missed? What was missed? So, that's the part. I was also a Cub Master. I got into the boy side of it. So I looked to kids, the boys are going to be a certain way or whatever else. I had a friend of mine, her son and my son used to get together, and her son bit my son and drew blood. And I said to her, look, I'll be happy to hang out with you, but I don't want, the kids to hang out. She goes, oh, that's how boys are. I said, no, That's how your boy is. My kid doesn't go around biting people. So she was very upset, you know, that I said that. Well, my sister has 4 boys. That's how they are. I go, well, guess what? That's not how they are. So we didn't talk for a long time. And she gets back to me, I don't know, a couple of years later. And she tells me, listen, I would like to be friends. My son is in therapy. And she told me the story. She was driving and her son was in the back seat and grabbed the ice scraper and started hitting her in the back of the head with an ice scraper. She had to pull the car over to try to get up with a seatbelt. So she admitted this to me. So my thought was maybe I should have said at that point, oh, that's how boys are. But of course I did not. I refrained from saying it, but she didn't see the seriousness of it when her kid bit my kid. But I saw the seriousness of it and knew I had to remove my son from that atmosphere. You know, the kid was dangerous. You can't be drawing blood on a kid and then keep hanging out with them. I had to protect my kid. So there are signs along the way that some people brush off, case in point, until it happened to her when a kid was attacking her with an ice scraper. So I say these stories because there are signs along the way, and how many people miss these signs. And we have to be, as parents, as community people, scout leaders, whatever, we have to be hyper vigilant and take the time out to say, whoa, wait a minute, something just happened here. This didn't seem right. Or maybe explore it further. In my religion class, I had a little boy, when we went around the room to read the Bible, he was reading something, except what he was reading wasn't what was there. So I went to the director then to ask her. I said, I don't think he could read. So is it all right if I talk to the mom? And I did. So I found out the little boy was colorblind. He was dyslexic. And there was a third factor. The nicest little boy you ever wanted to meet, but he was limited in how he was expressing himself. Except I found the one thing. He used to make little origami doves. So I was so excited about this. What I did was I asked him to teach the whole class how to make origami doves. And I got the chills just saying it. He was the nicest boy, but I wanted him to feel that he could succeed in something in this class. So it is up to us to find that one thing, whether it's a small child or a young adult or adult, to be able to get outside of ourselves. That's if we're working on ourselves, of course. You know, with all things going on in households nowadays, parents are so focused within because of the economy. There's no food on the table and housing. You know, sometimes, you know, as parents, stuff could go by because we're busy worrying about this thing called life. So there are signs along the way, and I think it's imperative that we continue to have dialogues like this so we could look for these missteps or how we could help a child that's struggling and is incapable of expressing it. So yeah, I also have 5 friends of mine who lost children to opioids. 5, that's 5 too many. 6 actually, 6 too many. So anyway, that's my couple of cents in there about just being more hypervigilant myself. If I see something, I say something. Not everybody's going to be happy with me, even, you know, where I work. You know, I speak up, and I told one of the assistant directors one day, I'm not going to be well liked because I'm going to speak up when I say when I see something. And if it's in regard to the client and if it's wrong, I'm going to say something. Go ahead, hate me. I'm going to be the voice of people who don't have a voice. Okay. Thank you.
I'm happy
Oh,
with
man.
you, Patty.
Exactly. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's very important. Like, these stories are very important because a lot of times we miss these things. We miss so many signs and so many things. And sometimes it's because we're so close to the situation. You know, that's just that person being that person. And we don't think that, you know, that something could actually happen. There was a few people that we lost in the program that we had, you know, to opioids, and some just the alcohol abuse. Some to pancreatic cancer due to alcoholism. And people forget that alcohol is a drug. You know, people think of cocaine, alcohol, but alcohol is a serious drug. And actually, from what I've seen, seems like the hardest to kick and the hardest to get over, you know, to try to recover from. We do these, when we talk about the teens, we've had teens in our program who have discussed some of the stuff that they've done and why. And usually it's, you know, I was hanging out with my friends, I was doing certain things. They would always say that I started out partying, I started out going out here and doing this and hanging out with the wrong friends. But then when you get back to it, when they start talking, there was some trauma before that even started, where it was like, you know, you come to find out the parents were alcoholics, the parents were, you know, opioid abusers or misusers. You find out all of these different things that was happening eventually, like, oh, wow. You know, and when you start talking to them, like I've shared before, we went around the room with the first group I ever did. And I was like, listen, it was a peer support group. And I asked, like, look, you know, when did you start? You know, like, when did your addiction start? And I'm talking about, we started as young as 6, 9, 12, you know, things like that. I had a young lady, 18 years old, said she tried every single drug under the sun, except for angel dust because it scared her. Everything. We talking about all of the new stuff, all of the, you know, from the kratom to the, you know, all of this crank or whatever it's called. Everything. She was schooling me to some new stuff that I didn't know about. Where I could get it, where it's sold, how easy it is to get, what you mix, what you don't mix. And I'm like, wow. At 19. Now she's sitting there. She's kind of depressed at that point because she's like, I don't understand. I ruined my life. And, you know, only thing I could say to her is at that point, I said, well, look, you're the youngest one in the room. Everyone else is, you know, most of them are over 50, 60 years old. You should be applauding yourself for figuring out earlier than they did, you know? So in reality, you know, you should be, you know, feel great that you had the strength to understand that you have an issue, you know? And most of us and most of our kids don't do that. They try to hide everything. You know, so that's why we have to be in tune with our children and know our children. If they start hiding, start staying, you know, oh, and that's perfect. Somebody said in the chat, I'm a 32-year-old member of Al-Anon, which is, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about too, is that when it comes to the families, especially some of us who come from families who do not have substance abuse issues and don't understand why our kids got into this and why our kids are, you know, are addicted to things and have these issues or any other issues, we should try not only to find out, get involved, and go learn about what it is, especially addiction. Most people just think it's simple when they tell people like, well, yo, you need to stop smoking crack. Just get over it. Just stop. You need to stop drinking. Just stop drinking. It's not that easy. You know, just think about some of the addictions that we have as people. Some of us eat too much. Like if some of us have these different things where we love working so much and trying to accumulate money so much that we can't, look up. It's just all about the dollar. And if somebody told you stop making money, is it that easy? You may think it's that easy, but when you're addicted to something, it's not that easy to stop. Especially when you're talking about something that, something as insidious as alcohol and opioids. Something where if a person would stop drinking at certain points, they can go into a coma, and they would have to drink just to stay even and stop the shakes just to feel normal. And that goes for heroin as well. Like these are things that people need in their body. We have people on methadone for over 30, 40 years, just trying to kick this heroin habit. This stuff is not a game and it's not a joke. If it was that easy to stop, trust me, we would have a lot less addicts in the world. And that's what, so instead of me just talking, I have some questions if that's okay. Patricia, go right ahead, Miss Massey, and then we'll start with the questions after that.
I do want to add something. My current job, I'm an addiction recovery coach, and I'm also a Narcan trainer. And on the job, my colleague and I went to multiple businesses to train people. And we found that in certain towns, they were anti-Narcan. They wanted hands off. Oh yeah, not in my backyard attitude. They one guy was very adamant out in the Wading River, posh little stores. Oh, well, if somebody's down, we're just gonna call 911. Not gonna do anything. Just stay there. So they didn't even accept the red box, Narcan box. And it was like he did it in front of a young girl who was taking the box. She listened to our presentation and we gave the demonstration. And he says, no, take it back. And he was very angry with us. And I'm like, oh my God. But this is part, when you're trying to educate people and you're coming up this type of attitude that, oh, it doesn't happen in my backyard. Yeah, it does. It does happen in your backyard. It happens in everyone's backyard. Get your head out of you know where and start looking at what's going on and be in reality. Nope. They don't want to be in reality. They don't want to think it could happen to them, unless, God forbid, it happens to one of their kids. And then all of a sudden they may wake up and smell the coffee. But that's a lot of the problem, is denial is very deep. We have a lot of kids in our neighborhood here in the surrounding towns that go around terrorizing people on their bicycles. I recently spoke to the mayor and she says to me, contact the police know about it. I was crossing the street a couple of weeks ago. Right after I got to my car, there was a swarm of young kids on bicycles. I want to say 50 kids coming around the bend on bicycles. If I was just 2 seconds slower, I would have been mowed down by those bikes. These kids are going around kicking fences in. They're destroying people's properties. They're jumping, they're playing daredevil, jumping in front of cars. And people are saying they need to do something. You know, post a picture on Facebook, do this, not get do it because they're a minor. It's really bad. They're terrorizing neighborhoods. And then they're saying if only somebody will pay attention if somebody, God forbid, gets hurt or killed. Isn't that terrible? This is what's going on. They're in denial. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, Sister Miriam, go right ahead.
Alhamdulillah, thank you. Again, thank you for this. I've tried to advertise everywhere because I know how important this is. And as a peer specialist, it's really difficult to get people to really understand what we do, how we do it, and the importance of this as a part of a community. I'm sorry. So I want to thank my people for showing up, those who there, and I just wanted to answer just one piece. The sister said duar, and she said hadith. I just wanted to explain that to my people who are here that might not be Muslim. Dua is a supplication, right? It's your personal prayer. So we all make supplications in all of our religions or faith beliefs. So that's what dua means in Arabic. And hadith are sayings of the prophet. So it's like stories of things that he's done, like how do I do this thing? And someone says, how do I do this? And then this is how I did it. That's what hadiths are saying. So I just wanted to clear that. I wanted to add to the conversation, one of my daughters, I have a team, right? I have 5 kids, 6 grands. As you see, my grandbabies are always in my face without reckon. But one of my daughters works at kind of like a Head Start, in a sense, program. And one of the things we talk about often is, what is the plight of our youth now? Why, how can we really help them? I'm a community chick. I come from community. I think community at any given time. There used to be 13 kids in my house. I don't know who they are. I'm like, does your parent know you're here? If your parent knows you're here, you belong to me once you touch this door. And I tell their parent, they reach this door, they're mine. And what I say goes. When they leave, it's on you. But they're going to be safe. They're going to be secure. They're going to have a voice. They're going to know they can speak honestly and be in a safe place where no one is going to harm them. That door that has my bedroom on it is the only thing off limits. I don't care what you do in the rest of the house, eat, play, dump, jabble dutch, whatever you do, be it. Now, since COVID has happened, my belief, we kind of, I don't want to say we take it for granted, but I think us as adults, we're so used to moving through life, handling struggles, and the next one comes and we move away from that. We keep going because we're technically survivors. Why? Because we had no choice. We know we had to still wake up no matter what was going on, feed the family, clean the house, wash ourselves, whatever. We needed to be responsible, no matter, even in its minutest form. We had to figure that out, and that's part of our registry. But since this COVID thing happened, a lot more has happened to our children in their psyche. Forget us as adults. Our children and their psyche. We talk about some of the people, or we reflect on some of the people that we know passed away. How about our kids? Their friends have passed away. Their teachers have passed away. Their family, their parent has passed away, and they still don't have voice, right? If they didn't have voice before, they got less voice now. It became a long time age of texting, which means lack of communication, lack of the ability to communicate, lack of the ability to find words. Why? Because we got emojis for every foolish thing. Emojis for a hamburger, for a hot dog, for a feel sad. We don't have to use it. I have some emojis people text me and I don't know what it means and I want to look it up. I can't even find it. I'm like, what is that thing? What are they telling me? Right? So our kids might know, and then they got their own hidden language, and they don't have language. They don't have language. They have less opportunities to really communicate with each other. One of my daughters, like I said, is a teacher in the school system, but she works with younger children, like my grandson. And her thing in our dialogue is that they lack socialization skills. Most of our teens, most of our from young age, as my grandson, who just made 3 today, from him up to the 20s, lack socialization skill. And COVID didn't make it any better. Why? Because we don't have that community interaction as we used to. Something I watched once talk about, there used to be a day you can't walk down the street and not see a grandmother peeking out the window or on the stoop. My grandmother was one of those, right? Everybody called her mother. And everybody knew if you was hungry, come upstairs. Her door is open until one of us locked it at 12. Come in and eat. She didn't care who you were. I follow that same stream. I'm a New Yorker originally. I've been in Pennsylvania now for 6 years. It is so different. There's no community here for me. I can't go down the street and find a neighbor. I talk to my neighbors. I have a garden. I share my food. They might not know my name. They don't care to know my name because they're this small little silo. So what is that doing? Again, the message that we're telling our children without telling them is that we don't need to communicate. We don't need to be in community with each other. We don't need to support each other. We don't have to. But then our children are suffering because they're still growing. They still have questions. They still have their own trials. And as the sister said, anxieties, depressions, fears, happy things that make them happy, things that make them silly that they cannot tell a parent because parents say, why are you talking silly? Why are you watching that foolishness? Blah, blah, blah. Right? I've made it my sole kind of mission because my older children are adults. And then there's one teen. We do anything she wants. We have date night. We go watch documentaries. We go bowling. We sit up all night and watch foolish movies. I don't play video games. I will break it. We're not doing that. But when the babies come, they all know how to say, pick me up. And when they say, pick me up, I don't care what I'm doing. And some of the people that are on here know me. And we host meetings. They'll see my grandchild right up in the lap. Because if he said or she said, pick me up, I'm picking her up. Until she's 20 years old, maybe. I'm going to pick her up because I don't know what that silent need is that I'm going to feed that, as Patty said, might later be the problem, right? Just a disclaimer. My dad was an alcoholic. I didn't know him. My mom split when I was 2 months old. I thought 2 years old. He died when I was 5 years old. At 34 years old. 6 babies my mom was left at 32, period. My eldest brother also died from substance abuse. Same age, 34 years old. I have no men. I have no men left in my family. It was just those 2 guys. She never remarried, come from that place where you married once, you married for life. That's it. So I didn't have that. So it's important for me as a divorced woman to still be community and support my children, support my grandchildren. We have family eatings any day of the week, not Thanksgiving, not Valentine's Day. Any day is a party day in my house. We just come and we're movies set up in the back. We're doing it. Why? Because I'm clear about what that loss looks like from my own perspective, that I at least bring that up when I'm thinking about my other children and my teen and what their loss could possibly be. Last thing, my teen daughter mentioned a tag name she wanted to use. And I'm like, where did you get that name from? And she said to me in elementary school, one of her friends who wasn't close friends, he just so happened to be a classmate, was killed. And she feels that. I'm like, you never told me that. Do I even know this guy? No, but he was someone I passed in the hallway and I said hi to every now and again, but she feels his loss. We have to open up those doors a lot more to hear our children speak, to allow them to speak, to not ostracize them when they say something. Again, my teen will say, can I get a pass? I'm like, sure. That means, can I say whatever I got to say in the language I got to say it in? Yeah, you got to pass because I need you to get it out. I needed to come so that we could address it. But if they can't talk, if they can't voice, if they can't be honest in front of you, then we never will be able to handle this plight of how do we save our families? How do we save our children? How do we meet their needs? How do we fill our shoes in our community really, truly? Because it ain't about wearing a hijab. It ain't about talking the great speech, nice voice. It's about, are you present when somebody, forget it's your child. Anybody is my child. Anybody. When I see people on the street, my kids will say, why are you talking to them? Do you know them? I'm like, no, I see you. And I tell them, I see you. Do you see me? I see you seeing me, seeing you. Are we clear? Good. Long as we clear, you know somebody sees you, I'm good. Peace. Let me know what, whatever, right? Sometime that, because for me and my trauma, that's all I needed was anybody to see me. Nobody saw me. Because I have the face that I call, invisible. I don't look like have a broken thing anyway. I said, what does that look like? Is my eyes supposed to be hanging out? My mouth supposed to be what does that look like? It doesn't look like anything. Be in your heart, be in your senses, be in your truth. Forget your quote religious belief. Be in your God consciousness, in your spiritual being that's connected to everything and anything, and stay present. And then we could touch each other without fault, without judgment, without reason. We don't need a reason, right? We don't need a reason. So thank you. Sorry for my soapbox. I appreciate you.
Nah, Sister Miriam, that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. And that shows the power of peer support too, and why it's so necessary. You have to be there and show up. And this is the necessity. And I want to make sure that those who are listening on outside and Facebook and everywhere else, that, use the peer supporters. Definitely. Use all the peer supporters, use your therapist, use everyone, use everything by any means necessary to save your children. Use everyone. But I wanted to tell you, like, as like we used to say when I was the EMT, like the first responders, right? The first responders, like in the community that I see, is usually the peer supporters. We're there. And understand that we've gone through some of those things that you are going through. It is very different when someone has went through what you went through and have walked a mile in your shoes. You may walk a little bit differently, You may have turned left sometimes when we went right, and that's okay. But we understand, for the most part, what you've been through. So, it's much easier. Like they say in AA and NA, it's like one addict can best, help another addict. So it's the same thing when it comes to, mental health. If I've walked through it and if I come out on the other side and I'm good enough where I can now reach back and help someone else and help you walk your own path, then that's cool. Just assist you. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'll give you some suggestions, but you have to walk your own path, and we're here to help you walk that. We have therapists and all of those people who are involved with us because you may need another level of care, and that's cool, But understand it's a bit different. Sorry, Sister Patricia, we only have 1 minute left. So we usually only do this for an hour. So we're gonna stop right here. Usually, like I said, we have question and answer sort of deal, but we have so many people here, and you've got brought in so much knowledge and understanding, and especially that passion. And that's when you can tell. One of the Salaf used to say, if you want to reach the heart, you speak from the heart. And that's what you can tell by these people, everybody that's on this panel. Like, we're about what the young people say, we're about this life. This is what we live. This is what we do every day, and this is what we want to do. This is our passion. So if anyone out there, if you need us, reach out to us, any of us, and feel free, anyone, to drop your information in the chat. And then, we'll try to, forward that information, or just hit me up with an email, get it to Sister Mariam, and she can get it to me with no problem, and we'll forward all of that information. Just wanted to share as my client's cake. Okay. Yeah, no doubt. In these things, the more and more that you talk to people, the more and more comfortable they'll get, and the more and more they'll feel open, to talking with you. That goes for children, that goes for adults, and everything else. And I just wanted, my last thing is that I usually see the end result of what happens when parents and caregivers and all the different communities don't get involved with people. I see the results of that. And it's a harsh reality that if we leave our kids out there to the wolves is going to eat them, believe me. And these streets, they don't take any prisoners, and we may think that it's okay if I send them here and it's all right, as long as they stay out of my hair, as long as I can, listen, we have to be very, very mindful. Our children are definitely our future. And, our children are definitely our future. We need to stay on top of what they're doing. We need to get involved, and we need to invest in our children, and that's what will be my last. Okay, thank you, that Mr. Soto, put his number up. So next week, August, not next week, but the week after, our next program is August 16th. It's going to be body positivity and self-acceptance. So I think this is also important, especially for our young women. So hopefully we can get some, younger folks involved. And I'm going to be reaching out to that, maybe try to, kidnap one of my daughters and let them come and talk about this sort of things. They're all kind of out and about, the older ones anyway. So try to get them to do that. So I just want to thank everyone. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out and definitely spending time with us. I appreciate you. And as always, we ask God to bless all of you, to bless your families, and to lead you to what he loves, and to keep you and abstain you from what he dislikes. Ameen. All right, people, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Peace and blessings be unto all of you. And we'll play the outro because we didn't get to do it before. So for all of these different reasons, we're going to play it again. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sister Yusma, and everyone else on the panel. And Sister Naziat and everyone else who showed up. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Alaikum.
My soul is shining from the light in my heart as I praise my Lord right from the start. Tears of joy overflowing from All the pain in the past was a blessing in disguise. In the middle of the night, I will supplicate to you. As darkness fills the room, the prayers make me feel brand new. Tranquility, the break of dawn comes too soon. Belief in your mercy makes me feel I'll never lose. أشرقت نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما رددت يا رب العباد.
So does that mean you're still on, Miriam?
It does, Chaplain James. Did you need to reach
Wow.
me?
Patty.